Hey, welcome to my anatomy presentation. I have notes here that I'll be looking off of, so hopefully I'll cover all the bases. Let's start with Chapter 1. What is anatomy and physiology? Anatomy is the study of structures and relationships between body parts, and physiology is the science of how those body parts come together to function. In short, anatomy is what your body is, and physiology is what your body does. Now, there are characteristics of life, such as being made of cells, breathing, being able to reproduce, and being able to maintain homeostasis. Now, what is homeostasis? Well, homeostasis is an organism's ability to keep an internal equilibrium in response to changes in the environment. Such as, if the environment were to get cold, people would start shivering, or if it were to get hot, we'd sweat. If we were to get hungry, we'd feel hungry. If we were to get cut, then the platelets would move to seal up that wound. Or if we were to get thirsty, we'd feel thirsty. Anyways, there's levels of organization in your body, which starts with atoms, then moves on to molecules, then macromolecules, then organelles, then cells, then tissues, then organs, then organ systems, then the organism. Which I am an organism. So, that's a good example. Now I'm supposed to tell you about anatomical terminology, which is basically just directions in your body. So, anterior and ventral is the front of you, which is separated from the back of you by the frontal plane, which the back of you is the posterior and dorsal. So, that's nice. That's great, you know? Anyways, now we have the transverse plane. So if you put your arms out into the T, that's the top of the transverse plane, and you put your legs out into a V, that's the bottom of the transverse plane, which basically means if you went into a spaceship and it scanned you up and down, that's your transverse plane. Wow, isn't that fascinating? I'm teaching you things. Then we have the sagittal plane. So if something were to, an example is like a futuristic shower, if it were to start from left to right, or right to left, that's the sagittal plane. Anyways, so now we have the midline, which is the middle of your body, which is easy to remember. Anyways, so the midline, the closer you are to the midline, that's the medial, and the farther away from it you are, that's the lateral. So if you go this way, that's lateral. Wow, we're learning. Now let's move on to Chapter 2. I'm supposed to tell you about 4 inorganic substances and 4 organic substances. Let's start with inorganic. So we have salt, water, carbon dioxides, and acids. Well, salt, we use that to balance fluids in the blood. It's also essential for nerve and muscle function. Water, your body is 60% of water, and it's in body fluids, basically. We use that for digestion, absorption, creation of saliva, and maintaining body temperature. So an example of maintaining body temperature would be sweat. Pretty basic. And CO2, my friend said we are like cars, which CO2 is in respiratory drive. So, like cars, when we breathe out, CO2 comes out. We also use it for various roles, such as regulating blood acidity or blood pH. And then we have acids. Oh, acids. We use that for multiple things in our body. Some of them are as strong as battery acid. Wow. Anyways, fun fact, genes are made up of nucleic acids, proteins, amino acids, and lipids, fatty acids. Interesting. Organic substances. We have carbohydrates, lipids, proteins, and nucleic acids. What do these organic substances do? Well, carbohydrates are your main source of energy. They help fuel your brain, kidneys, heart muscles, and central nervous system. Fun fact, fiber is a type of carbohydrate that is good for digestion. Lipids. Your body uses them as energy storage. They also help with the structure of your membranes in your cells. They also function as important molecules to signal. They send signals. Proteins. They help provide your body with a structural framework as well as help build and repair body tissue. They also help maintain proper pH and fluid balance. Finally, we have nucleic acids. They help with the storage and expression of genetic information, basically DNA, RNA, and ANA. Chapter 3, cells. Cells are the building blocks of all living things. They are different by their function and specifications. You can tell them apart by their shapes, because their shapes are different for the jobs they have. Now, how do substances move through cells? Diffusion and osmosis. Diffusion is when things move from high level to low level, and osmosis is the diffusion of water. Wow. There's also active and passive transport, which would be endocytosis, exocytosis, and vesicle movement, which would basically just be pushing things out and bringing items into the cell. And vesicle movement is like eating. So if the cell ingests something. Stem cells are completely different from normal cells because normal cells have jobs, while stem cells don't have jobs at all. So they're raw materials and could become any normal cell. I'm also supposed to tell you about cancer cells and normal cells and the difference between them. Well, normal cells will have a tumor suppressor that will limit it from reproducing infinitely, but cancer cells can reproduce infinitely, which basically is the proto-onco. So if I got this right, then the tumor suppressor is the proto-onco. Because if I understand it right, the tumor suppressor is a normal gene, and then if it's mutated, it can turn into a cancer cell. Now I'm supposed to talk about cancer risks and what risks that you can go through that can lead to cancer. Basically smoking, drinking, those can lead to cancer when you're older. Sunburns, exposure to radiation, poor diet. The list goes on. Chapter 5, the last chapter, I'm supposed to tell you about the 4 tissues of the body. Connective tissues, epithelial tissues, muscle tissues, and nervous tissues. Connective tissues support the other tissues and binds them together, such as blood, bones. Then epithelial. Oh, epithelial, that's your skin. It's the covering. It's also located in organ linings. It lines your organs. Then we have muscle, which is motion. Yeah, it moves your body. Examples: muscles. Your heart, which is muscle. Then we also have nervous tissues, which carry messages. So your nervous system, your brain, basically, gotta send messages of like, oh, ow. So that's the end. Finally. I've been doing this. This was great. Thanks